What's up? Today I want to speak about music publishing. This is going to be a follow-on from a video I did previously about how you can get a music publisher. Steal my method. I want you to, basically in that one there were elements that I touched on but didn't get quite deep into that I felt are helpful, and I'm going to cover them today. So the first thing I remember when I spoke about getting with a music publisher, I spoke with 3 publishers in particular, but I only really spoke on what I did to get into that one publisher's good books. So I just want to touch a bit more on that. So there's 2 other publishers that I've worked with on a regular basis. And with the second one, it wasn't so much like the first one. By the way, if you don't really know what I'm talking about, I will leave a link to the previous video somewhere, either on the screen or it will be in the comments in the video description. So just check it out and then you can come back to this one. So music publisher number 2. I met them a little bit later on, 2013, possibly beginning of 2014. And in that interaction, it was an email initially, but then it turned into phone calls. I remember I was at a course at Wits University. I must have been doing my master's, and I remember stepping out of one of my classes and I thought to myself, wow, who are these people? Called them back. It was a lady. She was like, yo, listen to your music. There's a couple of tracks that we like. She gave me a list of them, I think via email. And I was like, this is quite a few. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't like a hang of a lot because I'd given in between myself and my production partner. We must have handed in anywhere between 60 and 100 tracks. And I think of those ones, they maybe made use of about 8 to 10. But what we didn't realize was just how much they were going to get these things to be used. So they made huge, like even to this day, there's still many programs where those tracks are being utilized. I don't think we've ever worked with a publisher who's gotten us that much play before. I have since tried to send them more music, and it seems that I don't know if they've stepped out of the space or they're not really taking on that much music anymore, but I was just told they just basically left me on hold for a bit. So I'll hit them up again, but it was one of those golden moments where I just got lucky, hit them up at the right time. It just happened to be looking for music at the right time, so they used a lot of our stuff. And it just also shows you in terms of the odds, in terms of how much music you're going to submit. There's going to be a lot of music submitted that might not necessarily be used. But there have been so many instances where I have sent music in, whether it be in 2014, 2015, 2016, and it only gets used in 2022. So if you check that out, it's like 9-8 years before a track gets used. And you might not want to wait that long for your track to be used, but think about it like this. If you release it as a song now, just play the math on it. You release it as a song now, you don't know how well it's going to do, right? It could blow up. You could make, even if it is, we call it, I don't know, 50,000, 60,000 Rand off of that song in 2023. But it might be used in 2027 or 2028, and it's used on a show, and this show plays in different parts of the world, and it plays multiple days of the week, and the usage on it could be so high that it ends up being a massive amount of money that you make. So never discount the fact that your music might not make money right now in this library music space. So like I said, second publisher, we got lucky, we sent our music through, they started using it. There isn't that much more to speak on about that publisher. In terms of the third publisher, I ended up not going with that publisher just because they wanted to do things exclusively, meaning that any music that I created, so basically anything that came out of that little computer that you see there, would go to them. And I was like, does that make sense that every piece of music must run through you? That means that if I meet someone in the street, it means that I shouldn't really network even, because I'm not going to benefit. Well, I'll benefit, but the pie is still going to get cut up because you just happen to be my music publisher. I can go and broker a deal for myself with Sprite, and you will still get a cut of that, even though you had nothing to do with the conversation. The sheer fact that you are my exclusive publisher, it's a wrap. So I didn't want that. It felt a little bit record label-y, so I felt even in my musical youth, it still felt like something is not right here. So I didn't end up going with that one. So that one was a bit of a dud. Now, in terms of exclusivity, we can actually go into that. So the first one that I spoke about in the previous video with that music publisher, that's the music is exclusive to that publisher. So unlike the deal I just talked about now, with the first publisher, the one that I continue to work with, if I make music specifically for them, it needs to be used specifically for them. I'm not going to go and take those same songs and go and get them played anywhere else. They are specifically for them. And I'm happy doing that just because the briefs and the conversations we have and the tweaks they want me to make are so in-depth that even if I do come to them with a generic beat, we are going to mold and fix that thing until it is exactly what would fit in their catalog. That for me is a hallmark of an amazing publisher, someone who's going to sit there and craft their albums, get the names right, metadata 100%. They check everything. There is just a lot of love placed into it, and it's just they're meticulous about what they do. And so I'm very happy working with them. With the second publisher, they were a little bit less meticulous with regards to the various versions, but they were even more particular about the specifics in terms of the sound. So there were quite a few times where they would make us go back and redo, basically tear it apart, and they'd pick two elements. It'd be like, we like the piano and we like the string that comes in every 4 bars. But that's it. Everything else can be trashed. We need it to sound a bit more like this. So there's that. And I understand that, working to a brief really has helped. This is how majority of freelancers end up working anyway. You end up getting a brief and then you end up having to work according to that. So it sort of did teach us how to work with, play nicely with others. Yeah, so one thing that I learned, and only learned it way down the line, was how to have a look at the contracts when they come in. So basically, they'll give you your percentage. Well, they'll tell you what the percentage split is going to be. If there's multiple composers, if it's just one publisher, they just break it down for you there. They break down the name of the songs and just, it's all clearly laid out there. But just understand what it means when you get an upfront fee as opposed to not getting an upfront fee for the work that you do. Because sure, you'd want to get an upfront fee. And there were instances where I would get an upfront fee. But then what I realized many years down the line when I was looking and I was comparing my royalty statements, I saw that in those places where I didn't get an upfront fee, there were more royalties and I didn't get it. So I went back and I asked a couple people, and they explained to me that in me accepting an upfront fee, there was a certain amount of, there's a certain royalty I was waiving. Basically, I'm not going to get that royalty. And that's okay if, you want the money and you want it up front and you want it now. It's great. But the amount of money that I got when I did get that extra royalty was 5 times as much. 5 times as much as what I got. So yeah, you can imagine how I felt when I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, it was good money back then, but it would have been amazing money. I probably wouldn't have felt it because it would have come in trickles, but just the concept of it is just so much better to not take that upfront payment and then work on the back end, especially if you're working with a good publisher. It's a bit different if you're working with a fly-by-night. It's the same with when you're working with artists. As a music producer, I prefer to take my cash, especially with the up-and-comers, up front. The reason I do that, they'll come to me and be like, yeah, I'll give you 50% and all of that stuff. The reason why I don't do that route is because, one, majority of the people who come and they say that, I'll say to them, okay, who are you registered with? How are we going to do this? They're like, yeah, but the moment I'm done with this, I'm going to get my SAML registration done. I'm going to do this. Already that tells me that they're not going to do it because they would have done it already. Another reason why I prefer to take it on the back end is I know that they just sometimes, or a lot of the time, I can tell by the level of investment in the song and the beats and all of that stuff. By the time they get to me, they have tried to get freebies done, they have haggled me, they've tried to pull my prices down, they are not being serious about what they're going to do in terms of marketing, and I'm like, the song's not going to go far. Let me just take my money now and call it a day. Should I be getting royalties? Sure, most definitely. But at the end of the day, I basically want to save my breath. I've been in situations where I've fought with people over percentages of royalties, only for them to, years down the line, when I go into DistroKid, I'm like, oh, here's that song that we released, whatever. and it's had like 30 plays, and it's earned, I think it's less than a cent if I'm not mistaken, which is very sad. That they were so serious in themselves and I was so serious and invested in the conversation, yet it amounted to this. So yeah, I take whatever percentage is handed to me for an up and comer. If they're a little bit more established, then the conversation changes a bit. I don't mind, then let's have a bit of a conversation and figure it out. So yeah, with artists, generally I'll take on the front end. But with music publishers, you then need to figure out what's going to work out best for you. And yeah, that's pretty much it to music publishing. There are obviously other types of music publishers out there. There are companies where you don't necessarily deal with a person. Like all the publishers I work with, I've dealt with human beings. I've phoned them, I've spoken to them over the phone, I've had meetings with them, physical meetings, I've had them on WhatsApp, I'm able to communicate with them. But there are some platforms where you can get your music placed in certain things, but it's through a service. So you can use, maybe you want to get your music placed on Audio Jungle or on Shutterstock or Artlist or any of those places. It's difficult to get onto those places. There's a lot of talented artists all trying to push their music onto there. And some places have just stopped accepting people. Like I know Audio Jungle no longer accepts people, new composers trying to make music for them, just because their libraries are so full. When I'm making videos, when I'm editing videos, and I don't want to go and specifically make a beat for the video, I'll just go on Envato, and there's so much music there. Different genres, different feels. I can find exactly what I want, and I don't need to open up my FL Studio to make the beat. So yeah, that's another way that you can do things. You can also use the music publishing services through your DSPs. So you can go on a place like TuneCore and there will be a publishing service. I don't have any experience using those. For me, I really like this experience of dealing with the person one-on-one. Even in my voiceover business, it's the same. When I work off of a freelancing platform, it's very stock standard. I'm going to be doing voiceover, this many words, this is how much I charge. Whereas if it's in real life, I get to sit with the person and say, what do you actually need? Let's talk it through. I know you can do it on a freelance platform, but it becomes even easier because we are here having a conversation and there's coffee in front of us. Let's discuss it. And from there, I'm able to create a bespoke package, and the pricing is also going to be different. Yeah, I'm going way off tangent now. But anyway, if you feel like you need a publisher, get your research done. You'll always look at the contract. If you don't understand what's going on, get someone to help you out. Please get someone to help you out. You don't want to learn things all the way down the road. And yeah, you can manage to get one. So good luck to you. Peace.